here with Blaze coach Danny Stewart. Danny, it's been an exciting summer for you in a couple of different ways. Firstly, congratulations on getting married. You kept that one very much under your hat, but I think the Blaze fans are all delighted for you and the family. But let's talk about the team. You had a big job at the beginning of the summer. You had a bit of a clear out. What prompted that?
I just felt it was time. I think, we learned a lot from last year. I learned a lot from last year, and I think, it was important to bring in the guys that I felt kind of fit into the way I wanted to play and my principles. And, sometimes it's a lot easier to do that than take a group and then change them when they're already kind of instilled in a certain way. So I just thought it was time for a reshuffle, and obviously created a lot more work for ourselves, but I don't think that's one area that we ever shy away from. So it was a lot of work, but I'm very, very happy where we're at right now.
How do you take those first steps? I've always wondered, with that blank sheet of paper with maybe a couple of guys returning from last year on the top of it, what do you do next?
Well, I think what you do is you just reflect back on the seasons past, and you see which guys kind of bought into how you wanted to play on a consistent basis, which guys didn't, maybe which guys underperformed, which guys overperformed, and you kind of gauge it on that. I think it goes along with your needs as well. What areas do you want to get better in? Does that player make you better in those areas you want to improve, or do they not? So there's so many different elements that go into it, and at the end of the day, you have to make those decisions. And do you know in April if they're going to be the right ones? No, but those are the decisions you have to make.
The chronology of the signings, you looked like you built the core first. Was that by design, or was that just a happy accident?
I think what we wanted to do this year was we weren't going to sign any guys that we're essentially taking chances on, but I think what we did, obviously we got our returnees back in place, and then like you said, core. But I think what we wanted to do as well is kind of put together those intangible type guys early on. And I think working from a budget standpoint, what it did is it allowed us to go out and get a Valorant and a Corshane at the end, and guys like that maybe weren't available in May or even June. And I think sometimes when you do play the old waiting game, sometimes it backfires. Sometimes the pool of players isn't what you thought it was going to be. But I think looking back now, I think we're very grateful that we were able to land a couple top end quality guys like that.
And how important is it to have guys like Lowers and Lake, who played together last year in Alaska, Ladd and Paquette, who played together in Tulsa? How important is that early on to have guys who are already familiar with each other?
It's hugely important. I think there's quite a few connections here of guys that have played with one another, or with guys that have played with each other. And so far this week we've had guys coming in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the guys have been golfing, they've been going for lunch, dinner, stuff like that, and they've been hanging out. Whereas I think last year we got them in and we just hit the ground running, and it was pretty demanding, our preseason, and I think by the end of the day these guys are just ready to go home, and I don't think they spent a lot of time together. And I think that's important. It helps with the transition, especially coming to a new country that you've never been before. I remember my first year here, it was a bit intimidating coming over across the pond, and having another guy there that just makes a huge difference.
Maybe an underrated signing, considering the loss of 3 key Brits at the end of the summer, was Luke Ferrara. He to me seems like a player who's ready to break out. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, what attracted me to Luke was his experience already. He's a guy that's played for a top team in the league in Sheffield the last couple of years. He's won a championship there, a playoff championship. He's a guy that's been involved in huge games. You see in the playoff final last year, he was still icing in overtime and in such huge situational minutes. And I think that was something for us. He's still young. And everything I've always heard about him is his work ethic is unbelievable, and he takes care of himself, and he wants to get better, and those are the type of people we wanted to involve.
And finally, we are one face short of a full roster. You've talked about having a specific type of defenseman fill that role. Can you shed some light on what type of player you're looking for?
Yeah, I would definitely like some a bit of size and toughness in that role. I've said it for years. It's usually the toughest role to find, in the sense that where we're looking for that, but we're also looking for a top pairing guy. Sometimes you can find a guy that fits that role that's maybe your fifth, sixth defenseman, doesn't play as many crucial minutes, but to find a guy in that role that can, play against other teams' top lines, but still bring that element of toughness, they're not usually around in the UK, and if they are around, they're usually playing in the American League or somewhere higher. So we're looking for something similar. Whether we get that exact mold, I don't know. We'll see. If we do sign something else, it'll still have to be a guy that makes us better as a club. And then, I think all the work we've put in this summer, it'd be a shame to just go sign a guy because we feel pinched at at some type of deadline. And absolutely ideal for us would be to have everybody in on time at the same time. But if a guy misses a couple of weeks of preseason and even a week of games, then so be it. If it means finding the right guy for the additional 29 weeks, then that's a sacrifice I'm willing to take.
And just finally, you've had a handful of on-ice sessions with the new guys. What are the early indicators looking like? What kind of team have we got?
Yeah, very, very good skating club. There's a couple guys that have exceeded my expectations already on how they move out there. I think we're going to skate very well. I think we're going to be very tough to play against. And sometimes you don't get that full, assessment until you actually get into gameplay. But, that was the idea when we started recruiting this team. And, I think we're going to have a team that plays a 200-foot game, and we're going to be tough. Teams coming into our rink know they're going to have to compete to take 2 points away from us.